already almost dinner time. So this session, a wrap-up session then, is just to kind of tie everything together if we can, to what extent we can collectively. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with Claire reporting on what she heard in her 3 sessions, and then Kate and Jeremy will report on what they've heard, and then if I think of anything else that I want to add, I'll add it, and then we're going to go through the three breakout sessions that you just had, and have you report back, and we'll see where we go from there, if it's not dinner time already. Claire? Oh, there's one thing I need to say about Claire. She just lost me. Okay. Well, I can't do that without the sun on. See, this it says Step Central launch. So I view Step Central as our website. Okay. When Claire says Step Central, she's talking about the community of practice. So, and I've tried to hint at that to her a couple times. They're not the same thing, but she hasn't gone on it. So, anyway.
Well, that is a great segue. Thank you. Because our question was, what are we talking about anyway? So you're right. You're exactly right. So now I don't know what to say. So what do you call yourself? What do you call the whole community?
We don't have a name yet. The Step Community.
You see. It's a Step Central Community of Practice. I said we should call y'all here the Central Committee, but that didn't go very far.
And we're coming up with a 5-year plan.
So in the 3 groups, we started out talking about, so when we say community, when we, who is it? What is it in your mind that we're talking about? What is that bigger vision? We thought it would be really fun to make some wordles about what you said. So this was the blue group. Unfortunately, these wordles didn't turn out to be very useful. So there's a lot of needs. There's some people, there's some students, there's some information, there's a website, Dan, called Step Central. Okay, and then we have the red group, also has students, but they have a zone. Really. A safe zone, that safe and that zone is supposed to go together. Thinking, students good. Help, partner, question, outcomes, increasing, long distance. These are fun, but it really takes some more analysis and more editing to really draw meaning from them. Important, share. Okay. Information, learn, website, community, know, ultimate, learn, similar subcommittee successes. Okay. Information. Okay. So, there's a lot of themes here, and you guys are very creative and have a lot of brilliant ideas that I come away from the discussions knowing that Step Central is not just a website. It might be several websites, but one idea that came out of it is that there are layers of the community, that there are many smaller sub-communities of interests. People who are interested in community college transition, people interested in peer learning, people interested in evaluation, and that those are really good starting points for developing face-to-face connections that build trust and build community. The other idea that came up was regional affiliations and getting to know people in your area, and that's also a really great place to start building that face-to-face connection. Then there's the green circle, there's the STEP PI staff and evaluators that have knowledge to to put into the community and also questions to ask out of it. And then in the biggest context, there is a role of dissemination, a role for advocacy, a role for building up the new leaders, both at the next level of PIs, the next level of student leaders, the next level of leaders at NSF for that matter, or at the state. And what ways does this community identity here address those larger audiences? So that might imply that there are two sides of the website, for instance, one that is about external dissemination and one that is about regional communication. Something to think about.
When we think about the community, where do the students fit in?
Well, that's a good question.
They belong to the world of STEM.
Do they belong? Yeah, he says they belong to the world of STEM.
Good,
Yeah, yeah,
Just making sure they're in there.
yeah. Because they could also, well, they're not really on the staff, but they're certainly participants. So, but one of the things that came up is, well, will students be using this website, and if so, how? So, that's a good question. Let's resume slide. So, the most important thing I think that we said is that a community of practice starts with face-to-face community and then expands to online and virtual communication vehicles. That it really is not successful working the other way around. So that's a really interesting starting point. And that kind of bridged over to our discussion about the meetings and what can happen at the meetings that will build the identity, the connections, the face-to-face stuff that community relationships are really about. One idea that maybe came out in the website conversation too was to have an app that sends out a weekly digest of the hot topics or something like that, as different than maybe an RSS feed that sends an email every time someone posts something. Okay, but something so that people are on a regular basis prompted to engage. Something that's not up there, but should be, is the idea that there is a culture or an ethos of the community that is about mutuality, that's about give and take, so that people feel invested in answering questions as well as asking them. And that, so that you understand that by posting your lessons learned, which is a risky action, you know, but by posting that, you're contributing to the world of STEM larger than your individual project, and that you're an active community member, a good STEM citizen. And then the other thing that's on here is the idea that we can use technology to reduce our labor, our work burden, rather than necessarily increase it. For instance, the brilliant idea that projects take a turn blogging or telling about their project online, well, maybe that can be used for one of their quarterly reports, you know, or if whatever sharing that you do online, you can download your participation and have that as documentation for supporting your reporting requirements. And you know, it's sort of like when you write a paper, you turn it into the teacher, and the teacher's the only one who benefits from your brilliance. Well, let's benefit from each other's brilliance by making the reporting or writing papers public for each other. So then the idea is, well, this is, you know, that takes a lot of energy, that takes time. Who's got that kind of time? Who's going to invest that? And so really great ideas about making that investment of launching and sustaining this community part of your jobs, something that your institution recognizes and rewards you for, that you have professional expertise that you are building and being recognized for, you know, in the community, maybe through a stipend position at NSF as an expert on peer team learning or or a webinar presenter, or different kinds of ways that we can pull from all of the knowledge base that's available through the STEP programs, and to recognize and build that into the activity. And that the building an online community is different than having a document repository, which is also a valuable function of the community. But it involves not only posting a document, but maybe commenting on other documents. You know, maybe asking questions, maybe answering questions, maybe setting aside 15 minutes a week where that's what you schedule yourself to do. You know, just to be in touch with your pals. We didn't go too much into this, but we did think a little bit more about integrating the conference. So one idea is prior to the conference to start off, maybe there's some birds of a feather type sessions. Maybe you could have an online forum for STEP members who are interested in that topic and start the conversation, to ask questions to be posted that can be covered in the session, so that when people come to the session, the conversation's already started and gives you the ability then to go deeper. Actually this next suggestion came from Brandon after the meeting, but to, have an assignment before you go to the national meeting, find 3 people in the community that you want to meet and network with at the meeting. So that way, it's going both ways. And then using technology at the conference to generate discussion through Twitter and chat streaming technology there. Also ripples out through the Twitter sphere and et cetera. The ISTE does a lot. So that's all I've got. And you all can add and get your
It feels kind of like just a whirlwind of a day here, but here's our attempt to summarize your generous input. Back. Yes, it is effective. Restart it?
What did you say?
While it restarts. Part of what was interesting that Jeremy and I got from the community is that the site, the STEP Central website, can kind of use an organizing schema that aligns with your organizing schema as you're working your way through your project. And so some of the good suggestions we got were sort of to key things a little bit to common project milestones and tasks that you already have to do anyway at that phase of your project. So as you work through a given thing that you have to do anyway, you may be generating content and then posting it to the site, and then that content is there for use by others when they get to that phase. So this would be sort of part of the sustainability aspect of the site as well, is that it would sort of become self-perpetuating after a while as people sort of chug through different phases of their project, completing those tasks, posting and sharing, and then other people using them.
Let me see if I can get our tech.
Okay, whatever, if it wants to look like that, that's fine. All right, so we were thinking, basically what people were saying is, give me a reason to go to the site. Like, when do I need to go there? Why do I want to go there? And, when would I need to generate some content, interact with colleagues using the site? And so we're kind of thinking in terms of a two-way roadmap for contributing useful things and finding useful things based on common project milestones like, and these are some of the milestones you mentioned, getting started with your STEP project, the annual meeting, what is it all about? How do you make the most of it? How do you prepare for it? Even things like how do you put together your first poster, especially if your project is just starting. You don't have a lot to say yet about it. Ideally, well, we really like that idea of there being connections between, say, your annual reporting requirements and your STEP Central comment. People like the idea of there being some sort of two-way feedback so that work that you do in one of those two places feeds into the other place so that you're not having to sort of do things more than once. Everyone faces evaluation and assessment. A lot of people already have really great tools that they've come across or developed with respect to evaluation and assessment. Seems like a natural theme to include. Facing your third-year review. Good conferences in order to disseminate, other organizations to know about, things like getting yourself published, where to seek avenues for publication, and things like wrapping up a project, sustainability, institutionalizing aspects of your project. So those seem to be some of how we organize our thoughts in our mind. And so if the site can sort of mirror that in certain ways, it'll make it a little bit more natural for people to jump in. So that's kind of the input we got on sort of the organizing schema of the site. Also, people talked about the user interface and the features, and so we just kind of captured what we could. It could be more conversational, it could sort of be more people-oriented. The interface could be more consistent in certain places, like some places things are kind of in a list or detail format, other places they're sort of in blocks, maybe consistent lists everywhere. Many people mentioned that if something is posted, there needs to be a date and a person who posted it, and you need to be able to sort by those. And then incentives for sharing resources or seeking resources. People mentioned, well, we're encouraged to submit highlights to NSF. What is a highlight even supposed to look like? Well, if the STEP Central site is a place where you post your highlights, then you can look at other people's highlights and you can sort of know what a highlight should look like, and you can post it there where your peers are going to see it. And it doesn't feel like it's just sort of going into a vacuum. Frequently asked questions were also mentioned as a possible, natural thing that kind of draws people in. People mentioned that they wanted it to be really easy to find people they need and connect with them. Ways to find projects that are similar to your own, ways to connect with those individuals, even just email links and things like that. People mentioned ways to sort of be flagged to recent activity, not receiving a million little email notifications every week saying, oh, somebody just posted something, but sort of a simple, concise way to see there's new stuff that you might be interested in and things that people have responded to what you've done. And then likewise, ways to track your own progress through this site and sort of personalize it to your particular filtering and searching needs and things like that. And then finally, let's see, people talked about sort of the public face, especially when you first land on that very first homepage. We sort of saw through new eyes that it doesn't actually sort of say, what is this organization all about? So if I'm not already a member of STEP Central, when I land on that page, can I tell what it's about? And in each of our sessions, people talked about students. Let's highlight our students a little bit. And those pictures that slide by, the ones with students are the ones that are sort of drawing people's attention. We probably want to put the NSF logo up a little higher, maybe spell out our acronyms at least once, and some general orientation as to who we are. There's places where redundancy can be reduced, which makes room for a little bit more information about who we are, what we're all about. And then the homepage should be our opportunity to sort of educate and be a public face. And then once inside, that's our chance to personalize things that are relevant to us. A theme that many people also mentioned is cross-linking with other organizations, other related efforts, that there's room for that. There's not a lot of that out there yet. Okay, so those are some of the main things that we frantically tried to gather from your excellent participation in our session. We want to say thank you very much for your input, and we invite you to, when you do visit the site, one thing to draw your attention to is in the, yeah. In the discussions, one of the discussions is just about your feedback. So as things come to mind, as you notice issues, as you come up with an idea like, oh, it should have this, here is where you would just go ahead and post. You can see things other people have posted. It's been a bit of a while. We use this a lot during the beta testing, so we invite you to let us know what you think. All right.
Okay.
Back to Dana.
All right. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about or summarizing what happened in our group, because I think that's going to emerge a lot from your own presentations. But there are a couple of things that that I just wanted to add. I think that that some of the ideas that emerged in our group were ways of integrating the meeting and the STEP site and other things, and various kinds of functions that would do that, but also reiterate some of the things that both Claire and Kate said. One of the big things that I heard from you, and I think we all heard it loud and clear, was that small group face-to-face interactions are really important. Those are what's going to drive success in the bigger meeting, and also success with online activities. And without those, it becomes harder to make the personal connections when you're just doing things online. So that's one of the ideas that I think has emerged. And in our discussion, a lot of the focus was on whether we should organize, how we should organize by maybe either geographically, or by topic, or by theme, or by expertise. There were a variety of ways that were talked about, or some combination of those. And that working groups in that, or we could call them sort of sub-communities of practice, or that are really sort of the critical thing that we need to get going. And we did talk a little bit about, at least in some of our sessions, about how there is actually funding available to do that, and how we might proceed if there are people who are interested in pulling together small meetings. So that was one thing, and I wanted to see it was another connection with some of the discussions about the website, and that was finding ways to make the website maybe a little more intelligent, and doing some of the work for us. So for example, right now you can go on the website, and with careful searching and filtering tools and sorting tools, you can find a bunch of projects that are similar to yours. But what might be really nice is that when a new project comes on board and we go and fill out their profile, wouldn't it be kind of neat if the site came back to you and said, well, here are 5 other projects that are based on what you've told us about your project, are kind of similar to yours. Sort of in the way Facebook tells you about, these are your friends, and here are some other people who might be interested in friending. So those are a few of the ideas that have emerged, and in our discussion, we did talk a lot about what kinds of roles people might play within the community, and I'm hoping that that's going to emerge a little bit more from the individual group discussions that you participated in. So, who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Sue, what I'd like is disclosure. This is all being videoed. Okay, we're being recorded. That camera right in the back is all knowing. And the intent is, as I promised people who were hoping to participate remotely in the meeting, we couldn't arrange to do that. So next best thing is to prepare a little video from what's going on in the meeting, or a couple of short videos, and put those on the website. So, as you're presenting for your group, if you could come up and stand up here in front of the camera, that would be good. And speak loud enough so the camera can hear you.
All right, so our red and green and blue group came up with this to-do list of things that we saw that needed to be done, and of course that implies people to do them. First on the list was to develop a vision statement. Another was to define the intended audience for STEP Central, because there's still quite a lot of discussion and a big range of where we think that audience should be. And then beyond that, someone to sort out the levels of communities and what is appropriate access to the STEP Central website for those. For instance, if we're including students as part of our audience, then what parts of the website will we have them have access to, and so on. Some of the other levels of communities might be the PI community, the greater STEM educational community, and other subgroups, evaluators, project coordinators, and so on. We need folks to identify all the various range of work groups or subgroups that we might want to feature. We need folks to regionally put on organized smaller meetings, either face-to-face, which may also entail some finding funds, as Dan to sponsor all of our travel, or webinars, which would obviate that need. We need folks to identify people that are willing to act as experts within the STEP grantees community. That may be a survey or something. This is multimedia, isn't it? We need folks to facilitate website discussion, maybe folks to actually seed some of those discussions so that there are many more topics. Suggested people to post on the website, and that's pretty much all of us, but to post a little more deeply. Links to projects, links to curriculum ideas, links to publicity articles that perhaps you sent to NSF or perhaps you sent to someone else. People wanted to post nuggets that they would like to share with the lay public. We need folks to suggest links that we should include on the website for these parallel initiatives that are out there. P-Count was mentioned, NIH, McNair, MESA, I'm sure there's way more. We need people to envision and also to carry out whatever in-person meetings we want to have at our annual meeting. What kind of format would that be, or formats? And when's the best time? And we want to do a speed dating thing, followed by something else that's more regional, followed by something else, the night before or when. So people to think that through and also then to carry it out. Someone to establish some kind of recognition or incentivizing of our volunteers so that we can sustain the effort. And mentioned the example of how those folks who agreed to read proposals get a letter from Susan Hickson to their college officials that stays in their personnel files. Someone to envision a a good way to link the mentoring initiative that was just started, so it has some sort of connection, some sort of presence on the Step Central website. And people to contribute to topic-specific wikibooks. So we'll also need to have a lot of those topics kind of delineated. We tended to go back to topics such as assessment and evaluation because everyone's interested in how we can do a better job with that. And the last thing that came up was people to add to a depository of their data results from their STEP grants so that we could go and look at them online.
And you've all identified who's going to do which piece.
We're taking care of all of it, yeah.
Excellent. Next group.
Would it be possible to plug into the PowerPoint, which I can share with you?
And before the camera, you might want to say, introduce yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm Ray McGee, and I'm from SRI International. The STEP grant that I'm a project evaluator on is in the Shenandoah Valley area of Virginia. Our group spent time focusing on tasks that can be associated with the website, as well as some support and external communication tasks, as well as some regional coordination and outreach that could be based on types of projects that we're involved in, interventions that we're implementing, as well as other common areas. Here, related to the STEP Central website, we had 3 things that we focused on. One was on organizing. There are 3 categories: organizing, communicating, and then populating the website. For organizing, we thought that creating a timeline with the life cycle phases of a grant would be a good thing, as well as figuring out ways to involve facilitators, moderators, and curators for the site. In terms of communicating using the central website, we thought that perhaps creating and disseminating a monthly newsletter would be useful to communicate changes that might be taking place on the site, to summarize those, to conduct focus groups with non-STEP participants to evaluate the site's use